7-win type teams. I can't wait to let 18 to 22-year-olds emotionally ruin me.
I made a call, to Vegas. I said, look, we actually need the favorite here.
Welcome to Fair Bets, everybody. Usual Friday, your fastest 30 minutes or so in college football news and notes on Friday. I'm the Bear, Chris Fallica, joined by Bruce Feldman. We'll be joined by Sammy P in a little while. Bruce, we're sitting here outside Wrigley, getting ready for Northwestern, Michigan. It should be a fun weekend of college football. Not a ton of big games, but we always know something crazy happens when these college football playoff rankings come out.
Yeah, and there's some good ones in the SEC. Let's start with the one in Athens. Texas goes into Georgia. Obviously, heavy playoff implications, especially Texas, I don't think can afford another loss with 2 losses and one of them being to Florida. Now they play against the Dogs. Kirby Smart has been really good against top opponents when they come into Athens. Just how good has he actually been, though, Bear?
Oh, it's 8-0 against top 10 teams in Athens. I mean, it's very hard to go in there and beat him. And if you look on the flip side with Sark, I mean, people give Sark a lot of respect as head coach, and rightly so. But that win at Alabama a couple of years ago, it was the only time in 8 tries as an underdog that Texas has pulled an outright upset. This is like one of those glass half full, glass half empty type of games, I think, from a Texas standpoint. You look at the win over Vandy. You should beat Vandy. You look at the fact that their running backs are now is explosive and as healthy as they've been all year. They haven't been able to run the ball a lick all year long with those backs in that offensive line. Better now in the secondary, especially the safety position. So this should be the best we see from Texas all year. But at the same time, you still look at they beat Oklahoma and John Mateer when he probably shouldn't have been playing. Overtime games against Mississippi State and Kentucky. You should beat Vandy and Austin. It's like, really, how good is this Texas team? Have they really turned it around? And you mentioned it. I think 9-3, which would mean that they beat either Texas Tech or they win in Texas A&M rather, or they beat Georgia in Athens. How serious of a contender would they be at 9-3? Because I think the committee would look at it.
Let me ask you this, Bear. It's hitting close to home. But they would, let's say they win one of those
Tell
2
me
games.
about it.
They would be 9-3. You know exactly where I'm going.
I know
one
where
of those
you're
losses of the 3 is a really bad loss against Florida. Miami, who is sitting at number 15, would have one less loss if they run the table. They would be sitting there at 10-2, and they smoked Florida, a team that Texas couldn't beat. You really think a 9-3 Texas team would be over Miami, even with, because it's not like, if they get one of these good wins, yes, but Miami actually has a good win over Notre Dame earlier in the year.
That's what I'm really struggling with here. Like it almost feels like for the first time, like ever, that Miami, I don't want to say is like the victim but like usually Miami is not getting the benefit of the doubt when it comes to like media coverage, college football playoff fans, but like everybody's seeing the same thing with Miami here. Like, why are they ranked where they are? But I think that if you're like at that point when you're comparing these 2 teams, and you look at the wins, you look at the record, you look at strength of schedule, all of that, it might come down to something like that. And with the administrator, the ex-coaches, the ex-players in that room, wouldn't you think that they would lean towards a team that maybe handle the team that another one couldn't? If it doesn't come down to like a head-to-head, you can look at a common opponent and be like, hey, you know what? They got blown out kind of by Florida. I mean, it got closer, but the game was never really close. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I would think Miami should get the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, I would think so too, especially if they are impressive down the stretch. You still have to play Pitt. We'll talk about the Panthers in a little bit. The other game that's really compelling, I think, in the SEC, you have a 2-loss Oklahoma team going to Tuscaloosa. Tide's 8-1. Kalen DeBoer is probably better than anybody in these big game matchups in terms of like recent history and record. Put into context just how good he is, and how do you see it playing out this weekend in Tuscaloosa.
It really is amazing, Bruce. Like, you look at Kalen DeBoer as a Power 4 coach against ranked teams. He's 17-2. You look at Kalen DeBoer as a Power 4 coach in games decided by a touchdown or less. He's 16-4. It really is amazing because every week we seemingly ask, "Oh, can Alabama do it again? Can Alabama do it again? Can they make the play? Can they get the bounce again?" And every week it seems to happen. And Jeff Schwartz, my co-host on Bear Bets, brought up a really good point. I didn't think about it, and he made the connection. Like, Alabama has got a whole lot of 2023 Washington to it right now. Every week it was like a close game, but they continue to win and make plays. And that is contagious and that is infectious. And they're going to need it here because they're going against a very good Oklahoma defense. A lot of people like Oklahoma's chances this week. I just wonder if they can generate enough offense on the road here. It still doesn't look like John Mateer kind of knows where the ball is going at times. It was a weird win that they had at Neyland Stadium a couple of weeks ago. I know Alabama can't run the ball, but you look at what happened in Norman last year. That loss ultimately cost Alabama a college football playoff berth. Completely embarrassed. Jalen Milroe couldn't complete a pass. It looked awful. I think that weighs on the players that remain and Kalen, where I would be surprised if Oklahoma went in there and won. But if you do like Oklahoma here, you look at the Sooner schedule the rest of the way. You get Missouri, who clearly is not the same team now, without Norfolk tight end, without Pabula at quarterback. They're going south. They got them in Norman next week. You got LSU, who's probably dead team walking the week after that. If you think Oklahoma can win this week, maybe it might be worth taking a little bit of a better price on the money line for Oklahoma to make the college football playoff, which is a better price than simply going to Alabama and win.
Yeah, it's interesting in that you mentioned that old Washington team that DeBoer had that ended up losing to Michigan in the national title game. They were very one-dimensional. I think they ranked in the hundredths when it came to their run game. This is a very one-dimensional team that he and Ryan Grubb, his offensive coordinator, had, but they're winning this way almost in spite of that because I think they're very comfortable playing this way, and their defense has gotten better as the year's gone on. I mean, you've seen some guys really emerge as playmakers. I like the Tide here. They're home. I feel like you do, that Oklahoma's offense has just been sputtering for a while, even with Mateer back. And again, if this was in Norman, I might feel differently, but it's not. But I'm fascinated to see how Oklahoma, if they can get after, because we know they got a good defensive line and good scheme, if they can get after Ty Simpson and force him into some turnovers. He only has one pick all season. Nobody else has been able to do it. Maybe that's the secret to Venables sneaking a win here. And then, like you said, if they can do that, their playoff path looks a lot better now, given the banged up teams that they have left. I want to hit on the game that you're at this weekend. You're in Wrigley. It's going to be a cool setting. How do you feel like the matchup on the field is going to play out with a Michigan team that behind the scenes, the record's good, but you just feel like, I don't know, are the wheels a little off the wagon? What's going on with the Wolverines?
Yeah, and I know Justice Haynes again, so the running game, who knows? It's like every part of me wants to take Northwestern plus the points. The number dipped, obviously, again today, so I can't take 10.5 now when I could have taken 12.5 earlier in the week. Look, could this game end 24-10? Absolutely. I think Northwestern team total under is probably the way to go here. Maybe game under as well. You look at Michigan. I know the evidence, the history recently, whether it's been under Jim Harbaugh or Sharon Moore, 3-9 against the number of the last 12 games. They've been a double-digit favorite. But we mentioned about how early on Notre Dame has not lost a game as a double-digit favorite. Michigan's the same way, excluding that COVID year in 2020, which you're going to throw out with the opt-outs and everything else. 57 straight games they've won as a double-digit favorite. So again, Michigan, a program that gets everybody's best shot, and more often than not, wind up coming out victorious. I'd be surprised if the Wolverines lost.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I'm looking the other way. I think I like Northwestern's chances to pull the big upset. They ran the ball really well against USC on the road, a week ago, and that was before the game started to get a little away. But they were averaging like 8 yards a carry. I don't think USC's great on defense, but honestly, this Michigan defense is not the same one that had 2 first-round picks in the middle of the defense. And I feel like things are getting a little sideways with Wink Martindale's group over there. So pull me in on the double-digit dog here.
All right.
For whatever
That's okay. We Northwestern certainly Big Ten game here. Northwestern certainly had a lot to do with the firing there of James Franklin. What are we hearing about Penn State in the head coaching position there? It seems like every week we're hearing a new name. What names are out there? What news do you have out there, and what way Pat Kraft and Lions might go?
Bear, I got a name that a lot of people in that bar will remember where you're at, and that's Pat Fitzgerald, the old Northwestern coach. From people I've talked to this week, and industry sources think there is some genuine interest by Pat Kraft in Pat Fitzgerald. And remember, before Fitzgerald got forced out in the middle of that hazing scandal, which he ended up suing his alma mater for like $130 million, and they ended up settling. He had the Wildcats in twice got them to the Big Ten title game coming out of the West. And so people around Penn State and inside the Penn State brass do feel like this guy has a track record of doing more with less. The downside for him is he had one good year in his last four, and the other 3 years were atrocious at Northwestern. And this is before he got fired. He was 4-20 his last 2 years. So I think there's going to be some pushback. People going, "You really sure you think this is the guy?" Two other names to keep an eye on that we've heard that have emerged as candidates of interest. One is Brian Daboll, the recently fired Giants head coach. Remember, he was the Alabama offensive coordinator when they won the national title in 2017. Another one to keep in mind, also in the NFL and still in the NFL, and that is former Penn State tight end Al Golden, who was Notre Dame's defense coordinator and helped them get to the national title game last year. He's now with the Bengals. Obviously, if Joe Burrow comes back soon, which we expect, and they go on some kind of run and they get into the playoff, seems like a long shot, but that would kind of muck up the timing a little bit. But we know people in Happy Valley really think highly of Al Golden, did a really good job turning Temple around, but then he went to Miami and just never got traction there and hasn't been a head coach candidate really since then.
I wouldn't be counting on the Cincinnati Bengals to make the postseason. So I think if Penn State decides to go in the all in the direction, I think his schedule is going to be pretty clear. Another job in the Big Ten that might be opening up. We know Mike Locksley has been a great recruiter, a team that had a lot of expectations. They got some good young players. They've lost 5 in a row since blowing that fourth quarter lead against Washington. I think we all want to see Locks kind of hang around. We think the world of him as a coordinator. Think that he's got a chance, but it just hasn't manifested there. And they're a big dog after getting blown out by Suns last week. We've seen this Illinois line move. Do we think Locks is going to survive or no?
He needs, from what I heard, he needs a win either this week, and as you said, it's a big spread, or next week against number 18, Michigan. After that, they play Michigan State. They should win that game. As you said, this is a really talented young class. It's probably the best freshman class Maryland's had in a long time. If you end up firing him, you're probably losing a big chunk of this freshman class. Also have one of the top 5 recruits in the country who's committed to Maryland. You just don't know if they make a coaching change. Does that end up going away too? Mm-hmm. So this is a big one. Next weekend's a big one. I've heard he really needs to get to 6 wins. The AD is new. He came from the Atlanta Braves. I also heard from a source close to the program was like, he's not one of these new ADs who's just itching to make a coaching change. So if Locksley, they like him there. If he can give them reason to get more time, they want to do that. They need to see it on the field in this week and next week, though.
Yeah, and I like that mentality. Like we saw Frank Beamer take a while to get Virginia Tech going. As we've seen with a lot of these openings right now, like the guys you think you might get, you usually more often than not don't wind up getting them, and maybe you're in a worse position than you were beforehand.
Bear, one other place that has a coaching search, keep an eye on, and that's Baylor, where Dave Aranda's in some trouble. It just seems like that program has been backsliding. But what's also an interesting dynamic here is they play Utah, and Utah is rolling along. They have a chance to make the playoff at 7-2, but their AD Mark Harlan is now on the playoff committee because he replaces Mark Rhoades, who is the chairman of the committee. He has been in some hot water for his own personal conduct. So he's now off the committee, and Mark Harlan's in. What do you think of the optics of all this?
The optics don't look good. And look, I know you recuse yourself from any time you're talking about your institution being involved in the playoff line, but it just doesn't look. Put yourself in the shoes of being associated with, say, Vandy or Miami or BYU, like one of these other schools, and it's like, wait a minute, you're going to put the AD of Utah, who's like in the mix here on the bubble of like being on the committee, like you're talking to these guys outside of being in the room. And Utah, to begin with, is the team that I am most puzzled with about their rank and where they are. It's like the committee seemingly has rewarded them for their losses more than they have anything they've done in terms of winning on the field. You lose to BYU, when you lose to Texas Tech on your home field, when Hammond, the backup quarterback, was in there and they beat you at Rice Eccles, you blew a lead at BYU. You couldn't hang on there. You beat Cincinnati, who is in the committee's top 25, but they're 38 in the Sagarin computer. You beat Arizona State, who's 37 in the Sagarin computer, but Jeff Sims quarterbacked Arizona State that day in Salt Lake. Miami has 4 better wins if you're looking at the Sagarin computer than Utah does. Like, I don't get why Utah is ranked where they are. Same record as Miami, same record as Vandy, nowhere near the quality of wins. Like, help me figure it out, Bruce.
I can't, because like you said, that one win over Arizona State, Jeff Sims was like 18 of 40 in that game. And so it's a way different Arizona State team than the one that Sam Levitt quarterbacks. And so the team that's probably, maybe they're an 8-4 Arizona State team, because Sims has got to, he played well a couple of weeks ago, but he's got to be the guy the rest of the way. I just look at it. As you said, Utah got whipped at home by Texas Tech. That game was not close. And that was also a backup quarterback did a lot of the damage. So interesting dynamic now with Harlan, front and center in the middle of this as well, with the committee on the Tuesday night show. One other Big 12 game I want to get you on here. Arizona goes to Cincinnati to play those Bearcats you just talked about a minute ago. Arizona really, really banged up in the middle of the defense. Cincinnati can run the ball. We know Brendan Sorsby's a good dual threat quarterback. Tyree Walker is healthy. He was banged up a week ago, but I'm told he should be close to 100%. I like the Bearcats. I don't think you do, though, do you?
I don't. And we were on kind of opposite sides last week with the with Wisconsin, Washington, and I got the upper hand on there. So I'm worried about.
I gave you a plug on TV, by the way. I
heard about that.
You were about the only person I heard say that.
I appreciate that. Usually you want to be the only person on the island when you're taking a big, ugly dog like that. Arizona, I've kind of underrated them all year long. They had BYU beaten. I think it was a nice comeback win against Kansas last week. Fafita's had a really good year. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I know you talked about their injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but wouldn't surprise me if they hung around here a little bit, put up some points at a historic Nippert Stadium.
Yeah, Seth Dagey, old air raid quarterback, has done a really good job as the OC with Fafita. Obviously, you lose Tedero McMillan, his best friend since like 8th grade, goes off as a first-round pick. And Arizona's been really good. I mean, they've been one of the better, nice stories out of the Big 12. All right, Bear, it's time to go to the walkthrough where we bring in our go-to guy, Sammy P, who always has some good stuff. Let's start with the Lane Kiffin Bowl, and that is Florida, the big wooer for Lane Kiffin against Lane Kiffin's team. Big spread here, Sammy P. What do the wise guys think of this one?
Big spread, but it was bigger. It's been one of the craziest line moves all week. So last Sunday, we heard rumors about a white flag in Gainesville. They just lost game number 6. The coach has been gone. NFL guys may want to go somewhere else or just opt out and go to the draft. So when you think about where the number was, Bear, 13.5 on Sunday, 17 on Sunday night. But as we look up right now during this tape, 11.5. What goes up must come down. They are betting against the red phone, and they are shoving Florida in my face.
Yeah, the bet against the red phone may come back and haunt them. We've seen enough of these games, Sammy, where doesn't it move like that? You see a 17-point dog, and my money comes back down, line moves 5.5. More often than not, this results in like a 24-point loss for the dog, doesn't it?
I would hope so, but Bruce, we know this too. There are rumors about Lane Kiffin potentially going to Florida. I've heard two different sides of this. Lane's going to want to run it up. Lane's going to take it easy. I have no idea what Lane's going to do.
Whenever it gives the chance to run it up, I think Lane will run it up. He may have his quarterback say, he told me not to do it, but he winked at me. So if he gets a chance to run it up, I think he's going to make Gator fans go, I want that guy. Oh, he would. He would. Come on. We all know him. All right. So there's a game in Pittsburgh that a lot of people are going to be watching. Certainly the playoff committee better be watching. Top 25 matchup. Notre Dame in the top 10. Pitt still in the top 25. It's a big test for the Panthers. Sammy P, what are the sportsbook guys looking at here?
People keep betting Notre Dame because Notre Dame has made people money over the last month. And remember, we sat here a week ago and said, bet Notre Dame before it gets to 28 against Navy. Bruce, the line closed at 31 against Navy, and it still didn't matter. So what did the odds makers do this time? They opened it high. They opened at 10 at Pitt. Look at the line now, 12.5. The Notre Dame money keeps coming in. It's a top play at multiple sports books in Vegas. Bear, the books need Pitt to cover the 12.5.
I mean, I think there's a chance they could cover. The side that I like in this game is Notre Dame team total over. I mean, that Pitt defense is not very good. Would it surprise me if Pitt scored some points and got the back door? No. It would surprise me if Notre Dame did lose this game. I mean, if you go back, these typically are not. I know the line is high, and people always ask, why is Notre Dame such a big favorite? They always lose these games, but they don't. Notre Dame has won 47 straight games away from home as a double-digit favorite, going back to nearly 30 years. So this is not a game that this program typically loses. They usually find a way to win. Do I want to lay it? Probably not, but I would be surprised here if Pittsburgh did pull the outright upset.
Big game inside the ACC with ACC title game implications. You have Virginia and Duke. Duke feels a lot like the old Northwestern teams of Pat Fitzgerald, where they couldn't win in the non-conference, but found a way to beat all their opponents in the weaker side of the Big Ten. So here is Duke, and now we have a questionable report, or I should say, Chandler Morris is listed as questionable on the injury report. Sammy P, everything I've heard is people are a little more optimistic than that of Virginia. What have you heard of late?
I sent some texts out Wednesday, and the news was optimistic, put it that way. On Friday, the news is positive. So one person told me on Wednesday if the game was today, he wouldn't be cleared. But you still have the full day Thursday, the full day Friday. Get him ready to go on Saturday. It sounds like 70-30 Chandler Morris is going to play. Now, how woozy is he? How wobbly is he? We won't find out until Saturday. But, Bear, they fully expect to have Morris under center on Saturday.
Yeah, and we saw that earlier in the week when this thing moved from 6.5 to 4, and obviously someone earlier in the week did expect him to play. Again, this is a move I am going to go against. I laid the 4 with Duke. This is a 4.5. I think it's 4.5 now. Duke, everybody kind of expected them to go to UConn, lay an egg, and lose. They lost a tight game, but the ACC title game appearance is in their grasp. They beat Virginia. They beat their Tobacco Road rivals. You could be looking at potentially, Bruce, at a 4-loss Duke team winning the ACC, and maybe or maybe not getting to the college football playoff for Manny Diaz.
How about that? Crazy, but it's always crazy in the ACC. Let's stay in the ACC. We're going to get into the 2-minute drill, and we have Georgia Tech, one-loss Georgia Tech, facing a beleaguered Boston College program. Bill O'Brien knows a lot about the Georgia Tech program from back in the day. What are you guys seeing here? Is there any chance for a huge upset?
Well, Sammy and I were on BC last week, and that did not go well for either of us. BC is right there with Oklahoma State, I think, as the worst Power 4 team out there. It's one of those teams you got an 8-1 Georgia Tech team, a 1-9 BC team. You've got to go back a few years to find the instances where you've had this good of a team facing this poor of a team on the road in those 5 games since 1978 that you've seen this type of matchup, 8-1 or better, 1-9 or worse. The road team, the good team, has won those games by a combined margin of 191-22. None of the home teams scored more than 14 points. The line says blowout. The body language of BC, the play of BC says blowout. And Georgia Tech needs the game. They need to bounce back from that loss a couple weeks ago to NC State. They continue their march to the ACC title. Not a lot of good vibes right now, Sammy, up in Chestnut Hill. I see very little chance of a BC win here.
Wise guys betting the over in this game. Opened at 58. It is now 60.5 or 61. Should be a big day for that running game for Georgia Tech, and a big game for Haynes King, Bruce. He should eat and eat and eat some more.
Yeah, big fan of Haynes King here, too. He's the guy I trust most in the ACC, to be honest. I mean, I have more faith in him than Carson Beck. I have more faith in him than Chandler Morris. And I just think right now Brent Key has that program rolling. Bear?
Oh, go ahead, Bruce. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to tee you up, but I couldn't tell if we had some sirens coming to get you.
Yeah, Bear must be in Chicago. Sirens and trains, Bear. We know exactly where you are right now.
I was going to say, I'm sitting right here at Murphy's. I got the L to my right. We got sirens. I thought I behaved myself in the scoreboard earlier today. I thought I was a good boy. But you mentioned Brent Key, maybe a guy that we talked about earlier for coaching positions. He could be up there. Bruce, what do you got for us on the Battle of the Ravine? Washington Baptist, Henderson State. It's like one of my favorite rivalry games in college football. One of the unique things in college football, Division II schools, like right across the street from each other. You get dressed in your own locker room. You walk across the street. You play the game. Good, bitter rivalry. It's one of the good things about the sport. In a sport right now where we can't figure out a playoff, we can't figure out the college football playoff standings, head-to-head, how to pay players, how to pay coaches. Battle of the Ravine represents everything that's good in college football, guys.
Yeah, I would go with this is an old NFC East game because I'd never heard of Wachita Baptist until I found out Cliff Harris, the former Cowboy safety, went there. And I think Roy Green, the great two-way player of the Cardinals, was a Henderson State guy.
Roy Green. I like that. 81 wide receiver, right?
Yeah, and played some cornerback and put up some big numbers. Man, Sammy P, you must feel young and make us look super old for that.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I can tell you what's going on. The L just went by again. Before the L goes by again, I'm going to bit of do here from Murphy's in Chicago. Sammy, Dan, thanks for joining us. Bruce, as always, you, the listener, the viewer, thanks again for checking us out. Have a great weekend. And remember, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win.